have something special going on here today. It's really special for me because I get a little bit of a break. And your pastor needs a break every now and then where someone else comes in and does the message. And so today we have a special guest, and we've had people from Jews for Jesus who've come here before. Cyril Gordon's been here about 3 times, and Annette Sofer was here, I don't know, a few months back. So we're definitely friends with Jews for Jesus. We support them. We support their message, which is the gospel of Jesus Christ. So it's always special when they come here and they're going to give us the message today. So today we have Stan Myers, who's standing over there, who's ready to tell you something about Jesus and Jesus in the Old Testament and Jesus through the Bible. So I'm excited about hearing that and hearing that message. But let me tell you a little bit about Stan. He's married. He gave you this card right here, so make sure that you take a look at that. And as I just said, Carmel Mountain Church definitely supports Jews for Jesus. So Stan is married. He's been married for about 5 years or so. So his wife let him go today. He flew in here from Phoenix. So he didn't come from around the corner. He actually flew in here from Phoenix to be with you guys and be with us today. He has a special message for us. He also is working on his doctorate, so probably next time we see him, we'll have to call him Dr. Stan, because he's learned that, because you know how difficult that can be. So without further ado, and my continuing on and on, can we give a Carmel Mountain Church welcome to Stan Myers.
Well, shalom. Thank you, and it's great. You guys have been great supporters and partners with Jews for Jesus over the years. Thank you. Cyril Gordon is a personal friend of mine. Annette Sofer, who some of you have seen as the godmother of my daughter Carrie, whose picture you've seen up there. And so we're excited. If there were more Christians like you who cared about Jews coming to believe in Jesus, there would be more Jews like me who love Jesus. So praise God. So I originally am not from Phoenix, or actually I lived in Southern California for many years, but I'm originally, a long time ago, way back when, born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. And people are surprised to hear that there are Jews from Texas. They say, Jews from Texas? I thought you Jews come from the Holy Land. Brooklyn. Down in Texas, we speak a dialect of Hebrew called Texan Hebrew. We say shalom y'all. So it was okay. It was my mother who came to believe in Jesus first. I am a second generation Messianic Jew. My mother led me to the Lord when I was 9. I kept it a secret for a long time because I quickly found out most Jews are not very excited about when a Jewish person comes to believe in Jesus. So it was in college I became public about my faith and decided that I wanted to serve the Lord as a missionary. So I've been on staff since 1985. And in the course of my ministry with Jews for Jesus and serving and talking to Jewish people, I hear so many reasons Jewish people will say, here is why I can't believe in Jesus. And many of you might know, have any of you ever had a conversation with a Jewish person about Jesus? Raise your hand if you have. And what were some of the responses you got? What did you get when you talked to a Jewish friend?
Tradition.
Yeah. Tradition. Okay, it's my tradition. I don't believe in Jesus for tradition. Who cares if he's the Messiah or not? My tradition says I don't believe in him. Who else had their hand up? Yes.
I just hear that I'm culturally Jewish and I don't actually practice religion.
That's right. I'm culturally Jewish. If I were to practice a religion, it would be Judaism first. You believe he's the Messiah. I believe he doesn't. We all get along with our different beliefs because it really doesn't matter what you believe as long as you're just a good person in the end. And my tradition, my identity, my culture says I don't believe in Jesus. And that's the real reason. And honestly, that is the real reason most Jews don't. It's not because of some theological investigation into the Bible and the Hebrew and the history of the manuscripts, and they came out saying, aha, I have decided after many years of intense scholarly research, I can't believe in Jesus. Most American Jews don't know Hebrew. Most American Jews have never read the Bible. I'm talking about the Old Testament. And don't know, and they say, this is who I am, this is my identity. Let me show you a quick clip from Larry King some years back, where someone called in and asked the question of the director. Okay. Go ahead and play that clip.
We're back, and we go to Phoenix, Arizona. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
I would like to ask the rabbis, since we're talking about Christ as the Messiah, what are the qualifications they are looking for in the Messiah, and why hasn't Jesus filled those qualifications?
Well, the reason that Jesus is not accepted as the Messiah by the Jewish people is that Jesus is viewed as divine. The Jews do not believe in any other divine being except God himself.
Don't you believe the Messiah is coming?
Yes, but the Messiah that we believe is coming could be somebody that flunks mathematics in university. He is not infallible, not divine, and would be a student or a disciple of Moses, who by far would be considered greater than the Messiah.
How do you know he hasn't come?
Well, because the world is still in turmoil. We're told that when the Messiah comes, we will all live in peace and tolerance. And since we know that hasn't happened, we know for sure that the Messiah has not come.
Okay, so the world is still in turmoil. We're not supposed to pray to a man. That would be breaking the first commandment. This is the director of the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles. Anybody ever been to the Museum of Tolerance in LA? This is Rabbi Meyer, a fine man, a wonderful scholar, has a big heart, loved by the Jewish community, but he expresses the religious sentiment. We can't believe Jesus is the Messiah. He would be breaking the first commandment. He didn't bring the peace the Messiah was supposed to bring. So for a religious Jew, they've been told this is the tradition. And so for us, talking to Jewish people, we realize that for many Jewish people, it is a sin to believe in Jesus. They believe that they're turning their backs on their tradition. They're breaking the first commandment. They're following something foreign that was never Jewish. And so we have to overcome that when we try to explain why I believe in Jesus. But is it only Jewish people who are challenging the idea that Jesus is the Messiah? Sadly, no. Of all things, from my own hometown in San Antonio, a popular, nationally acclaimed evangelical who loves Israel and gathers Christians and rabbis together to show his national support with his giant organization of supporting Israel, has declared, this Christian lover of the Jews and of Israel, an evangelical, Jesus is not the Messiah of the Old Testament. In my book, Defense of Israel, I will scripturally prove that Jewish people did not reject Jesus as Messiah because Jesus didn't come to be the Messiah. How sad that it's not just my Jewish people, and it's not just liberal Christians who don't believe in the infallibility of the Bible, but even some well-meaning and highly acclaimed evangelicals are starting to announce maybe Jesus is not the Jewish Messiah. So we have to ask this question. We have to ask, did Jesus say he was the Messiah? Did he come to be the Messiah? Is he the Messiah in the Jewish Scriptures, that is, the Old Testament? If he's not, nobody should believe in him. Not Christians, not Jews, not anybody should believe that Jesus is the Messiah. If he is, everyone should believe in him, including my Jewish people. So let's look at what Jesus said himself in the book of Luke chapter 24 as he was teaching the disciples after the resurrection. Then he said to them, "These are my words which I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything that was written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms must be fulfilled." And he opened their minds to understand the Scriptures and said to them, "Thus it is written, the Messiah, the Christ, should suffer, on the third day rise from the dead, and repentance and forgiveness of sins be proclaimed in his name to all nations, beginning in Jerusalem." So we have this question. is Jesus the Messiah or not? And he pointed to 3 partitions of the Old Testament. This is important. Don't miss this, okay? He called it the Law, the Prophets, and the Psalms. That, by the way, is the traditional division Jewish people make of the Old Testament. Jews don't call it the Old Testament. I hope you know that. It's not particularly endearing to tell a Jewish person their Bible is the Old Testament. That just smarts of kind of bias. And so it was the Jewish Bible. It's divided into the Law, the Torah, the Prophets, the Hebrew word is Nevi'im, and the writings, which begins with the Psalms, Kovim, T-N-K, from which we get the acrostic Tanakh, T-N-K, Tanakh. Now I want all of you to say that simple Hebrew word. Ready? Tanakh. That's what Jewish people call our Jewish scriptures, the Tanakh. And that's how they refer to it. And Jesus used that terminology to say, these Jewish scriptures, they spoke of me. I'm in that book. Now, that raises this question. Okay? What are the options? Number 1, Jesus was mistaken. Okay? He didn't understand. He misread the Jewish scriptures, in which case we have to ask, what about all the other teachings that he claimed? Can we trust anything else he said? Or number 2, he was misleading. There actually was a book in the 60s that came out about that called Schoenfeld wrote the book. A book that Jesus was deliberately misleading the people for his political ends. Or number 3, he was misquoted. You take someone like Bart Ehrman, who recently wrote the book How Jesus Became God, and alleged that people later came out and made him say things that he never said, in which case we have to ask the authenticity of all of the New Testament, if they're authentic, and if the words that they describe really were ever spoken. Or number 4, he was the Messiah. The things he said, he really said. He truly quoted the Old Testament. He knew what he was saying, and he is authentically in the pages of the Jewish Bible. If Jesus is the Messiah of the Jewish Scriptures, everyone should believe in him. If he is not in the pages of the Jewish Scriptures, then nobody should believe in him. So let's ask this question. How can we find out? Number 1, let's talk about place, where the Messiah was supposed to be born, manner, what was the miraculous manner in which the Messiah was supposed to be born. Number 3, time, when was the Messiah supposed to be born? And number 4, mission, what was the Messiah supposed to do? So I want to look at these 4 things this morning. Place, manner, time, and mission. According to the Jewish Bible, where was the Messiah supposed to be born? What was the miraculous manner? When, and what was his mission? So let's look at this. Number 1, where? We turn to Micah chapter 5, verse 2, and in Micah chapter 5, verse 2, we see this prophecy. But you, O Bethlehem Ephratah, who are too little to be among the clans of Judah, from you shall go forth from me one who is to be ruler in Israel, whose comings forth is from old, from ancient times. And he shall stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, and the majesty of the Lord, the name of the Lord is God, and they shall dwell secure, for now he shall be great to the ends of the earth. So here we have a prophecy of a king who is to come, whose reign will be to the ends of the earth. Well, if you know anything about the Bible, you know that no king of David has ever had a kingdom that went to the ends of the earth. So this hasn't happened yet, right? Okay, so we're talking about some event yet to come in the future. Now, as you see from the picture here, all of this took place when the kingdom of Assyria was encroaching on Judea. The kingdom of Judah was this little kingdom around Jerusalem, much smaller than what we have for Israel today. The great Assyrian Empire was moving down, encroaching, and the Jewish people were scared, fearful that they would come and take the Jews off into captivity, which the Assyrians never did. Okay, it was the Babylonians later. And in the midst of that promise, The prophet Micah, around 550, 600 BC, gave this prophecy that God would send a redeemer. Israel, don't worry. Don't worry about the Assyrians. God will send this redeemer. And we see this prophecy, number one, that it describes the king will be born. It says he'll be born in Bethlehem. Number three, he will rule the world, which hasn't happened yet, so we know this couldn't have taken place. And number four, he will bring world peace, which, if you've checked out CNN, Fox News, or NBC, and you know that hasn't happened yet either. So we have this prophecy of a Messiah yet to come. And it says he'll be born in Bethlehem, which, by the way, is interesting. I don't know if you know what the Hebrew word Beit Lechem means. Beit means house. Lechem means bread. He'll be in a place called the house of bread. How interesting that the bread of life would be born in a city called House of Bread. Isn't that amazing that Jesus the Messiah? And we see that it says his goings forth is from, it says, ancient days, Mikedem, days of eternity. Wow! That should blow your mind for a second if you think about that. He'll be born, but his origins are eternity. Now, I don't know about you, but I believe the Bible is really clear. There's a point in each of your lives at which you began, okay? A point in time. Think of a timeline. Here's the timeline. I'm facing you, so it's this way. Okay. And before this, you didn't exist, unless you're Mormon. Mormons believe that we were like spirit beings up in heaven and came down to slide into, but according to the Bible, that's not true. God created us. There's a point in time before which you didn't exist. Everything that is created didn't exist before that time in which it was created. Right. Except for Jesus. It says here, he has eternally existed. Mm-hmm. What does that tell you? I mean, in my mind, there's creation and creator. And that puts Jesus over here in that category as creator. Born, but not created. The Messiah is not human. He's not mortal. He is divine. Human, God incarnate in the form of man. God incarnate. So we have here a picture in Micah that not only is he born in Bethlehem, but he is divine. He is God incarnate. Okay, how? How will the Messiah be born? Bethlehem exists on the West Bank. It's been around for a really long time. Pilgrims still go there around Christmas time. There's a lot of people born in Bethlehem. How could we identify one person who is born? What miraculous sign would accompany? I'll turn to Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14. Isaiah writes, "Again the Lord spoke to King Ahaz. Ask a sign of the Lord your God, let it be deep as Sheol or high as heaven." And Ahaz said, "I will not ask, I will not put the Lord to the test." And he said, "Hear then, O house of David, is it too little for you to weary men, that you will weary my God also? Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel," which is Hebrew for God with us. So we have this prophecy that a child will be born. It says, born of a virgin. It says that his name is Emmanuel, God with us. Again, another hint that this is, God coming to dwell with his people. And the circumstances were this. This is, again, around, I want to say, 700 BC. You have the northern kingdom of Israel. Why do you have the northern kingdom of Israel? Well, the Jewish people, the land of Israel had a civil war, okay? The north separated from the south. There was no reunification, okay? It didn't end the way our civil war did. And so there ended up being a separate northern kingdom and a separate southern kingdom of Judah. The kingdom of Judah is where the Davidic line, the Messiah, would come from. In this event, the nation of Israel allied itself with Aram and said, we're going to swoop down, we're going to take away the Davidic kingdom, which would mean the end of the line the Messiah Jesus is supposed to come from. So Ahaz is scared. He calls Isaiah in, and Isaiah promises, don't worry, the Messiah is still going to come, and your lineage won't be obliterated by the nation of Israel. So he says, a child will be born, Emmanuel, which means God with us. Go over here. And the problem is this. If you look at your King James, your New American Standard, your English Standard Version, which I've been using, New International, it says in Isaiah 7:14, a virgin shall conceive. However, if you look at your Catholic Douay Version, Jewish translations in the Bible, the Revised Standard Version, it says a young woman will conceive. And therein lies the critics. If you take an Old Testament course at, say, San Diego State, University of California, San Diego, UCLA, a number of other schools, and you take it and study this, they'll tell you it never prophesied of a virgin. It says, young woman, not virgin. Aha, the critics say. You Christians have read Jesus into our Old Testament. It never said a virgin will give birth. In which case, how do we trust any of this? You follow me so far? You know what I'm saying? This is the allegation most will say. By the way, is this the, should I change channels or?
We're working on it.
Okay, all right. This is the criticism that we Christians have faced for a really long time. We have painted Jesus into the pages of the Old Testament because Matthew totally mistranslated the Old Testament, which proves he didn't even know the Jewish Scriptures. How can you claim Jesus is the Messiah? So, the question arises around this one word. It's the word Alma. Alma is the Hebrew word that was translated virgin. Today in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew, the Hebrew word Alma means young woman. Hebrew is spoken today in the land of Israel. Great, let's try that. Hebrew is spoken today in modern Israel. If you use the word Alma, it means young woman. Most Israelis who read this passage would not see a virgin birth in there, to which we say, how can we say that Isaiah ever prophesied of a virgin birth? Is that really prophetic? Well, the first problem is Isaiah did not speak modern Hebrew. Okay, this is 700 BC. Okay, this is 2,700 years ago. Hebrew has changed. Guess what? English has changed. English is very different today than it was even just 500 years ago. Did any of y'all ever study Beowulf in English? Did you have a problem reading Beowulf in English? Listen to Beowulf in the original, not Old English, okay, not Old English, Middle English, which came right before modern English. Go ahead and play the clip.
When that April, with his sure sorter, the drocht of March hath persed to the water, and bathed every vine in switch liqueur, of which vertue engendered is the floor.
Okay, that's good.
When Zephyrus...
Clear as mud. There you go. Well, so the English language has changed. Hebrew has changed. So what did Isaiah mean when he said an Alma will give birth? I came this morning with my prayer cards that you all have. I came with my PowerPoint. I didn't come with a time machine. I can't zap Isaiah onto the platform and take my mic and interview him and say, Isaiah, please tell me, what was it like? What did it mean to you when Ahaz said, and if he did, you know, he would speak Hebrew, and how many of us would even understand what he said? Okay, so that wouldn't go very far. However, 200 BC, there were some sages and scribes gathered together in Alexandria, Egypt, who translated the Old Testament into Greek. And they did that because Jews were starting to speak Greek. It's called the Septuagint. And by the way, the Septuagint is still widely available. You can buy it at a bookstore. You can go onto the internet and download the entire Septuagint. It's in Greek. You'll look at it. You'll say, it's Greek to me. And you may not understand it. However, if you were to look at it, you could see the translation of the Old Testament. Next slide. And we'll find that when they translated the word Alma in Isaiah, they translated into the word Parthenos. Does that sound familiar? Parthenon, as in Athens, the temple to the eternal virgin Athena. Here you have these Jewish sages 250 years before Christ who clearly understood this was a prophecy of a virgin birth. A virgin birth, described 700 years by Isaiah before Christ. So, we have, number one, the Messiah will be born in Bethlehem. Very clear. Number two, the Messiah will be born of a virgin. Any questions? Interview the Jewish sages in Alexandria who translated all of this 200 years before Christ. Number three, when? When will the Messiah be born? So next, there we go. And we find Malachi, the very end of the Old Testament, the very last book, 400 years before Christ. He writes, "Behold, I send my messenger, and he will prepare the way before me, and the Lord whom you seek will suddenly come to his temple. The messenger of the covenant in whom you delight, behold, he is coming, says the Lord of hosts." Next slide. So the Lord whom you seek will suddenly come to his temple. Problem. Temple's gone. The temple was destroyed in 70 AD. The temple was destroyed and the Jewish people were scattered across the face of the earth to places like San Diego, Los Angeles, Texas, places all over the world. And so the Messiah would have had to have come before the temple was destroyed. Next slide. So the question is, did God forget? I mean, he's old. He's been around thousands and thousands of years. Maybe he just slipped his mind. Number two, was he angry? Did he lose his temper? He said, Israel is so rebelled, I'm just not going to send the Messiah. I'm going to break my promises. That's it. Yeah, I'm just going to break my promises. They're not worth anything. Or number three, he came. The Messiah came. He had to have come before the temple was destroyed. Number one, the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. Number two, he'd be born of a virgin. Number three, he had to come at least before the temple was destroyed. And if you want extra research to go home and read Daniel chapter 9, verse 24 and 26, you have the actual weeks and years laid out in which you can see that it had to have been 33 AD. Number four, last one, what would the Messiah do? And we'll turn to our last prophecy, Isaiah 53. Isaiah, 750 years before Christ, writes this, "But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray, each of us turned to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all." We have a prophecy that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem, born of a virgin, come before the temple was destroyed, and be slain and killed for the sins of the world. Here you have this incredible picture, very clearly describing Jesus. No wonder Jesus said to the disciples, pointing to these passages, "They speak of me." So, good. Let's see. There you go. Virgin, how. Great. Next slide. Okay. So, what does this all mean? Well, in our ministry in Jews for Jesus, this is one of the many ways we try to explain the gospel to Jewish people. But let me say, this is valuable to all of you, whether you're talking to a Jewish person or a non-Jewish person. Because we live in a world that alleges that every truth claim has equal footing. You have an opinion, I have an opinion, and we both can dialogue, and each opinion and values and truth claim has, a certain amount of its own merit and weight. But I'm here to say truth is not relative. Amen. It's objective. Either it's true or it's not. Either Jesus is the Messiah or he's not. And our beliefs and our faith are based in truth claims that you can verify. Whether you're talking to someone from a background of Asian background from the Far East or a Jewish person right here in your backyard in San Diego, we have to say our faith is based in real, objective truth. And that's what it means to each one of us as we go back and talk with our families and co-workers and friends and people that God brings into our life. We've had the opportunity to bring this message to Israel, the land of Israel. And I want to give you just a little brief update on what we're doing in Jews for Jesus. You guys have been a great partner with Jews for Jesus. I want to share with you about how your friendship and prayers are bringing this message of Jesus to Jewish people in the land of Israel. So Israel is a free country. You can freely share the gospel. You can talk to Muslims, Jewish people, people from any background. You can share the gospel. And we are an incorporated ministry, and we have a building in Tel Aviv under the name Jews for Jesus. But we've never done an evangelistic outreach in Jerusalem. Jerusalem's a difficult city. It's a city very politically at tension for many different reasons, as you know in the news. Jewish people, Orthodox Jews, who feel threatened that missionaries will steal the Israelis from them. And so we decided to do an evangelistic outreach that would be carried out through love, service, and through compassion ministry. We called our outreach L'Orecha, which means to your neighbor. It comes from the words, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And so we went in under this umbrella of L'Orecha to reach people in Jerusalem through service projects, through going into their homes to care for the needy, the impoverished, and to reach out to many Israelis. And let me say, most Israelis, 75%, are not religious. Did you know that? Most Israelis are secular. Many impoverished in Jerusalem. So let me play this short clip to show you just a little snapshot of what we did last summer. Go ahead.
I'm Dan Sarin, and I'm the Israel Director of Jews for Jesus. We've mapped out Israel. We've noticed that there are 12 different geographic regions, and this is by far the most exciting outreach that we've employed here in Israel.
We're here in Jerusalem with the university and yeshiva team.
Brought tons of cases of bottled water and hand them out. Been able to talk to a lot of people.
What's happening here is an event that we've called Art Never Stops, and it's a kind of jam, painting and sculpting.
It's really fun to get a group of people together and see how people really bond and build connections.
We have been in the muck and mire of this little river, just cleaning out trash to just love on the people of Israel.
And the salvation stories of what God has worked during this month-long campaign. Russian speakers still are the most open to the gospel.
We're going to take you in and see a house we've been working on. It's a woman who's working as a prostitute, and as part of our team to reach out to the homeless, drug addicted, and prostitutes. We're just fixing up her home to share the love of Christ.
We're reaching out to Orthodox women, and we're reaching into a community that for many years and in many ways has been unreached with the gospel.
What does Mashiach do then? If we all sin, you need help. Mashiach, you're praying for it, is the same one that Christians are praying for him to return.
How could we really impact a larger percent of the population? So we began to pray together and toss around ideas and do some design thinking.
A bunch of guys teams and girls teams are competing. Never would have thought it'd happen this fast.
Selling some of our handmade items to talk about who we are and things like that.
Looking for opportunities to engage a community. We're hoping to see these kinds of stories of change all across the city.
Really exciting for us. We just got to do a sandbox. You know what sandbox is? I mean, just experiment with all kinds of different outreaches. We had artist shows where we invited Israeli artists, many of them are secular, and just said, bring your art into our art space. And we want you to paint a picture of Jesus crying over Jerusalem. So here's secular Israeli artists, it sounds good to me, painting pictures and drawing of Jesus crying over Jerusalem. We had a sports team that just got kids off the street, organizing soccer tournaments. We had tours of, we were taking Russians, Jewish people on tours to places where Jesus taught and spoke and get a chance to share the gospel. And we went into the ultra-Orthodox community to engage and talk with ultra-Orthodox Jews. Now I've got and here's the stats, 250 staff and volunteers, 5,000 gospel conversations, 1,750 names of Israelis that gave us their names for more information, and 58 people who prayed to receive Jesus as their Messiah and Savior. And I have to just gloat a little bit on my wife's work. Sorry, my wife, Jackie, served at the Huntington Hospital as a licensed clinical social worker for years. She worked among needy people with emotional and psychiatric problems. And as a social worker, if any of you ever worked in the clinical field, you know you cannot share your faith. Not in California, that's for sure. You can't open the Bible. You can't share the gospel. And you can't even share your own testimony, much less pray with somebody. And so she was frustrated as a Jewish believer in Jesus who cared about reaching people for Christ, didn't know what to do. We got married 5 years ago, and she announced she wanted to be a missionary with Jews for Jesus. She made a good salary at the Huntington Hospital. Oh, Jackie, we just got married. Can you wait? She said, no, God's called me to be a missionary. So she came on staff with Jews for Jesus, and I thought that was the end of her career. And then we had this outreach to drug addicts, alcoholics, prostitutes, and homeless, the DAF team. And she went in there because this is who she's worked with for most of her career as a social worker, was addicts and drug addicts and people with traumatic backgrounds. And she came out to Israel and for a month worked in this team training our missionaries to do this stuff. They liked it so much they flew her back in February, and since then she has been training and mentoring our Jews for Jesus missionaries in how to reach this needy population. So I am so excited for Jackie and her work. There she is in Jerusalem with a Russian lady and one of our colleagues, Igor, who worked with them. And so it's been very exciting to see Jackie and her training and what she's doing. For a short time, she's just been on staff. In the second career, she's been able to reach needy people. Oh, thank you. Thanks. I got to mention Phoenix. We've been in Phoenix for 3 years. There's 85,000 Jewish people in Phoenix. It's the 5th fastest growing city in the U.S. Lots of Jewish people moving to Phoenix. Arizona State University has 83,000 students. It's the largest public university in the country. And we minister on that campus too. And next, and I got to mention one Jewish person that I minister to, and it is not his mastiff to his right. This is David. David, when I met with him from a Jewish background, agnostic, secular, not religious, never read the Bible, studied philosophy in university. First time I met with him, he said, I don't think I can believe the Bible or any of this stuff. Second time I met with him, he came with this notebook, a pad of paper. I said, David, why do you have a pad of paper? He says, because, I'll be honest, in my 80s, I don't have much more time to live. I've been to church, I've heard the gospel. I want to write down everything you say because I want to find out if Jesus is the Messiah, and I need to pray to receive him to go to heaven. Amen. So I continue to meet with David. He's come out to hear me when I speak in the Phoenix area. A couple of times he's come out. And so I want you to pray for David. I want to put a face in front of you of one of the many Jewish people we talk to so that you can pray for him and for the work we do in Phoenix. Next slide. So I want you to pray There's my family, Jackie, my daughter Carrie, who doesn't look anything like us. She's from China. You pray for her and me. A couple of things you can pray for. Pray for David and some of the Jewish people that we minister to. Pray for Jackie's ministry as she ministers to those on the team that I described and is training us to reach addicts, drug addicts, alcoholics, and helping with our Israel group, our Israel work. Pray for our ministry in Phoenix. And you have a prayer card, I think, that you got when you came in. If you didn't, they're on the table as you leave. And if you want to give a gift, there's going to be baskets in the back. And if you give a donation, as missionaries, we're supported by churches like y'all. This will go to our ongoing work, but we would just appreciate